Ladies and gentlemen, this is KageKaze, and as you've seen through many of the other videos, I have just been playing an awful lot of Path of Exile. And I have to say, overall, I like the game. I think it's good. I think what they've done a lot of work here. The graphics look good. The combat feels fairly good in a lot of cases. I'm still, since I haven't played the melee characters enough, I still felt a little that the melee combat felt a little less dynamic to me. And the melee combats I had here with this character that you're looking at, actually, it just felt like a lot of the hits, they were kind of there, just there. Like, the enemy didn't quite respond to the hit or get knocked around, or hard to really say. Kind of like it was floaty, I guess. But the ranged combat felt pretty good. When I cast a fireball, you see a big explosion. Now, I don't know if the monsters quite reacted to it because the explosion and animation was kind of over them, and you know, there were big booms everywhere. So the spells definitely have really cool effects. And some of the melee abilities that I was able to try out, they had some pretty neat effects too. It's just that the range was the part that felt just a little more visceral, a little bit more there for me. Overall, I like the system that they've created, this system where everything you get is based on your primary stats. You can see here, this is a duelist class. They use the strength and dexterity. And that helps me determine what abilities I can actually use. And as I talked about in the last video that I had on the witch, there is some overlap with some of the skills because of that. But that's what these hybrid classes were meant for. You've got your primary strength, primary dex, primary int classes in the Marauder, the Ranger, and the Witch respectively. And they get to use all the abilities within their color type. So let me go in here and I'll kind of show you. And thankfully, yes, the stash is shared. This verifies it right here. This is all the stuff from my witch. If you're a strength user, you'll be able to use all the red gems. If you're a dex user, you can use all the greens. If you are magic, you can use all the blues. I'm sure you can make a meme out of that. But there you have it. Now the thing about the hybrid classes is they're not going to be able to use the highest, most powerful reds, greens, and blues. Not immediately anyway, because they have a slower growth. But they get more of both stats. So I could be a strength user, or I could be a duelist here, for example, and I can pick up some strength things, so I can go ahead and go in here and I can go into cleave, double strike, right? Use those, but I could also put down traps from dexterity here, such as fire trap, or maybe go into viper strike, simply because I will be getting strength and dexterity. So the overlap is there, and I think that is where you're going to see some more creative builds. So the hybrid classes might be a little more popular in that regard for people that like to try out different kind of wonky builds, as it were. But then again, there's enough there for all the primary classes that I think they're going to find plenty to do as well. And there's plenty here in this passive skill tree to help with that. One thing I happen to notice here is I pulled back a bit from the duelist right next to his starting zone. You can just go around this path here. There's this. This is Iron Grip, where the increase to physical damage from strength applies to ranged weapons. So let's go back here. You'll see that you get 1% melee physical from strength. That's not a very useful ability for any class other than the duelist. Possibly... No, I don't even think really the Templar I was thinking, because the only classes that use strength are the Duelist, the Templar, and the Marauder. Now, unless you're going to try and go for a ranged Marauder. So maybe the Marauder and the Duelist. But the thing about the Duelist is that a lot of weapons for ranged need the dexterity for accuracy. And so you can take that strength bonus, since the Duelist gets both the dex and the strength, they can convert the strength damage increase right into the dex. And so you can make a duelist that uses arrows, or you can make a duelist that still uses swords and, again, traps or something like that. There's really no limit other than what do you want to make. As long as there's a passive for it and a skill for it, this tree is absolutely huge. I don't even think I've scratched the surface of it, to be honest. I haven't even looked at half of these skills. And each class gets a slightly different starting zone to experiment with. Of course, you could move on to someone else's territory. Again, I think the sphere grid of Final Fantasy X really kind of is what this feels like. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I thought that was kind of neat for being able to make the characters build as you want. So, not having to put in talent points, but having passive skills, I think this feels fairly good. The abilities feel fairly good, but the one thing I am concerned about, and it's not so much of a big deal, is trying to get skills that you want in the world. And another thing that I was worried about there is because of the hybrid classes and the homogenization between them and the primary classes, was being able to have your characters be different enough in the beginning of the game. And the beautiful thing is that is possible, because what they do in this game is you will find your powers and your gems in the world, right? They drop, but they don't drop a lot. Alright, they really don't. Every now and then, at least in the beginning parts of Act 1 and 2 that I've seen, a lot of them didn't really drop. But what they do to compensate for that is as you're questing in the beginning of the game, you will start to get rewards, and each of those rewards will yield a gem that will give you skills. And each of those rewards is different based on what class you're playing. So you could easily start off making a very different build from someone else just right from the beginning, because the class rewards for your quests are what's going to make you be able to build that. I think that works out really well for this game. Now, some things that do concern me here, there's been a few issues and bugs, and some of them are probably just there because of the open beta weekend. But the system where it resets the instances that you're in every 8 to 15 minutes. This is bad. Really bad. Not so much if you're exploring, like you're picking a higher difficulty level and you're looking for gear, a la Diablo. You know, you're going into higher difficulty. Hey, I'm going to go into Hell or Inferno. I'm looking for items. I want to find something with my magic find. Okay, that's great. Having something reset on you by going back, not such a big deal. If you're progressing through the storyline, this is a very big deal, especially when you're fighting a boss that ends up killing you a lot. If you watch my Witch videos, you'll see that I died a lot to the end of Act 1 boss. And a lot of that was because they wouldn't let me use my minions in that fight, I think, which really hurt me. But also because I didn't really have a build that was really well made against it, and I didn't have frost resist, which really probably would have helped me with that. The game is not easy. It is fairly difficult. Normal enemies will not tax you too much, except for they can overwhelm you. There are a lot of enemies in the game, a lot of enemies. And so you can get overrun, and you can be killed. And because one of the things I've done, at least for this, was I started running from point to point, because I was of level that I needed to be. I wasn't gaining a ton of experience. I wanted to move on to the next area to try and complete a quest. And to be honest with you, it wasn't a bad tactic, and it's something that people have done in Diablo 2, simply because skipping monsters was a good idea because you wanted to get to the next area or you wanted to farm the end act boss. In this, there's really not a lot to killing unique monsters. Not all unique monsters are going to drop really good loot. I've actually have some drop nothing on me. They drop a higher chance of getting good loot. But when you're trying to quest, sometimes you just want to move on. And it is a viable strategy to just bypass everything and run past it. But you have to be careful, because sometimes that will get you stuck. While it is viable, it may not be the best solution. But yeah, I had the waypoints are fairly plentiful. This is good. This counteracts it a little bit. But there were some spots where I went 2 or 3 areas without a waypoint, or the game would go down, or it would I'd die before I found the waypoint, and then I'd have to go through an area that I had already cleared, but it's been reset on me. And this is not good when you're just exploring for the story or trying to progress through. Again, great for final difficulty farming, but not in this case. I honestly hope that is a beta weekend only thing. I'm pretty sure it is, simply because I saw a message about them reducing instant queues. I did not think it would affect me because I didn't really understand what they meant by instances. Apparently instances is everything that's not a main town hub like this that I'm in here. This is where the open world happens. This is where you're going to see other players. Think Guild Wars 1, if you will. I can't speak for Guild Wars 2, haven't played it. But in Guild Wars 1, you would go into a town, that's where you would see all the players, and then you would go on into another area here, and you would be in an instance. Works the same way in this game. So I really think, again, that's a beta weekend thing. I like the idea of the potions, the way they implement them. You only get 5 slots, but they recharge themselves. You never have to buy them. And some of these potions can have magical properties. They really went a long way to make it so that items feel good in this game, because there's random properties everywhere. Random properties on your potions, on your items, I don't know, maybe even your gems at some point, but the system for items I really like because I can reforge my gear at any time that I want to. I can strip it of magical properties. I can then take an item that takes a normal item and turns it into a rare or a magical item, or I can gamble and try and get a random property from that item, which might be even the epic level stuff. That is really nice. Unfortunately, the stuff you find on the ground is not always the best. I'm gonna be quite honest. Some of the items you find, they've got some decent stats, but some of them just don't have very good stats at all. And of course, that's where reforging comes into play. You know, if you really don't like it, then you can upgrade, like here, you upgrade normal to a magic. You can reforge magic items with whole new properties. I've done that quite a bit. Add new random properties. That will not work if you use an orb to turn a normal into a magic, but it will work with existing magic items that only have one property. And, you know, there you go, a normal to a random. You can increase the quality of your weapons and your armor. Lots of really well thought out stuff here. And see, you can even see here that some of your flasks can even have some magical properties, which are nice. But what I noticed is about the items in the field, they just didn't feel that different. I was not finding upgrades, or at least what I would consider upgrades. I was playing a witch. I needed stuff that had energy shield, which is what intelligence will build on. Alright, it's like an extra layer of health. Witches have low hit points, but they have this barrier around them. You think of the sorceress's energy or mana shield from Diablo 2, except for it's not something I ever have to cast. It's like the shields from Halo, honestly. You have these shields, the enemies will beat at you, and then finally they'll take your shields down, and they're going to start doing health damage to you. You run away, you don't take some hits, and your shield comes back. Many games have done that, just Halo is probably one of the most popular ones. Even Warhammer 40k Space Marine does it. A lot of games nowadays do that. But it's interesting to see it in an action RPG, and I think it works fairly well. So there's a lot of good here, but when it comes to one of the bad things about the combat that I run into is in areas where they had undead, one of the things they like to do is they like to put in these necromancers that respawn the undead and revive them. Almost every single room had one of these guys. Now, I'm used to these respawning enemies from Shaman in Diablo 2 and 3, but there were a lot of them. And they were fairly difficult to get to at times. Almost every room in this one dungeon had one, and they respawn enemies faster than any monster of that type I've ever seen. So I was very quickly getting overrun in some of those areas. The end of act boss, I'm not sure how I felt about that one. Like I said, I died a lot. I wouldn't have been able to do a hardcore character in this game. Just because of that. That final boss was really tough. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. Honestly, I think they could work on that. I think when you have a boss like that, it should be something that you can use skill to kill, even if you're not quite at the level you need to be. I was probably a level ahead, and I still was having a hard time. The problem I had was dodging her projectiles wasn't a big deal, but she used this freeze ability that would slow you down, and it was an instantaneous cast at your location. And unless you were running at full speed and not frozen already, not slowed already, then you were going to get hit. So I think the Act 1 in-boss could be improved. The sub-boss for Act 1, the guy who was a lot like the Butcher, his name is Brutus, I believe, he felt good. He had a forward cone ability, he was fairly slow, he was a bruiser, you get next to him and you're gonna get hurt. I could have died in easily 2 or 3 hits from him, but he was a boss that basically told you you're the mechanic of you get away from him and you hit him from a distance, or if you're melee, you try and stick to his flanks when he's about to do his big hit. That felt good. The combat with him felt good. The combat with both bosses frustrated me because my witch went into the specialization on the passive tree for minions. Let's see, was up here, and I went into this route here where... not spell here. Lord of the Dead for more minions, additional minions, and of course damage and health. And unfortunately, when you zone into a new area, you lose your minions. I'm hoping they fix that. I think they will. I had mentioned this before in the videos. I believe that was even an issue in Diablo 2 when it first came out. There's a lot that needs fixing here. Really, a lot of polish that needs to happen. Just... for example, the glowing effects. I mean, you look at these waypoints, if I mouse over it, it just turns stark white. This here turns stark white. There's transparency effects. So they've only just added the second act boss. There's a lot that needs to be improved, but honestly, they have plenty of time. I'm not aware of a release date yet. I should have double checked that, but I can look into it again and add it into the description of the video below once I do. But they've got plenty of time to fix it. And I think, again, where they are right now is they've got a good game here. One of the features that's also very nice about this game is that the party system, you come in here to the notice board, and there you go. You can just look up public parties that are out there. I could just randomly join a party and start questing with them. That's great. So that gives you kind of drop in, drop out co-op play. A really great feature. And in this instance, what I like about it is that you can actually see what people are doing and what kind of party you want. This takes the place of making public games. It's kind of the same thing from Diablo 2, where you would make a game, you would name it. That's essentially what these are. Is because everything is instance. So these are basically the public game. They're doing what you want. If they're maybe farming a boss, great. You join them, you go and you do it. This is one thing that's missing from Diablo 3 that, honestly, I think was kind of a mistake and a bad idea. Just because a lot of people like to join in games that are doing something very specific. And the way Diablo 3 does it now is it does the matchmaking, which is cool, that's great and all. They could have kept that in. You know, if I just wanted to pick a quest and started playing from that quest and find a party that's doing that, that's awesome. But some groups like to do multiple runs. For example, Mephisto runs or something. Maybe they're doing Goblin runs. They want to put a description up saying this is what we're doing, so that way when they're done and they leave that game, they can just create a game with a similar name. I remember Mephisto runs. Someone would make Meph Run 1, you know, and then when they're left, okay, we're going to do it again, same room name except for 2, so they'd make Meph Run 2, Meph Run 3. And so every time you were done, you knew all you had to do was increment the number and join the game, and you would be with that group of players that you were just with. So you have something like that here. Great idea, honestly. I'm glad they added that. I wish Diablo would have added that. They could have done their queuing system and still kept public games. I know that's kind of what they're steering away from, but again, I don't quite agree with that. It's a shame. overall, Path of Exile, free to play. Everything that you pay money for is going to be cosmetic, from what I can tell, from everything that I saw. You can't even buy gems or anything like that, which is interesting because I think a good free-to-play model includes a little bit of power and a little bit of cosmetic. And when I say power, I don't mean pay to win. No, hell no with pay to win. Some people like to say that Diablo 3 is pay to win because of the auction house, and then some people like to say that Tribes is pay to win. Well, the truth of the matter is, in Tribes, you can get any weapon you want, you just have to put time into it. And yes, if you put money into it once, you get a 50% booster permanently for Tribes, which makes that a great model, because then it encourages people to pay, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Of course, it's kind of folly not to, but hey, you can only put in 10 bucks if you want to, and let's face it, for a game that if you're going to play it for any length of time, why not put a little money into it and help the developer? In this game, I see nothing but cosmetics for the stuff I've seen, so honestly, it's going to be hard to justify wanting to put money into it. With that, that's why I kind of would like to see them add maybe something like power, gems or something that you could buy. Keep in mind that all this stuff still drops in the game world. So all you would be doing is buying time. You would be saving yourself time. This is what Diablo 3 does with the auction house. People call it pay to play, or not pay to play, sorry. People call it pay to win in Diablo 3, but the truth of the matter is no, that's not what it is. It's pay to get what you want right now. Instead of grinding and grinding for long hours, which is what Diablo 2 was about, you can get the instant gratification that you want. Part of the problem is some of the loot variants in Diablo 3. I will admit that. That is true. But you have the same chance as anyone else of finding that item and using it. It's just that these people are out there farming it, and they're not using it, they're selling it instead. It's a very big difference between pay to get what you want and pay to win. Again, very good thing here. I honestly can't wait to see them put it further. If anyone wants to really see more combat, or sorry, see more of this game, I can go into the Founders Club, as it were, where you put money in now and you can get into the closed beta. I'd have to double check about NDAs and things like that on the closed. Since this is open beta, a lot of it is fair game, since anyone can get in. But I don't know about their closed. So I'll have to look into that. One thing about this game that I couldn't cover because it's in-game content, again, Total Biscuit covered this. I would recommend looking at his channel for this. He covered the in-game where at the final levels you can get map pieces. These basic, they're like map shards, and you put them together like a puzzle. So one map chart might reduce the monster's difficulty, but then another one might increase the drops that they have. So you've lowered how tough they are, but you've increased their drops. And then you also have another map piece that affects the actual world that's generated, and you say, here, this one gives me more treasure chests. And it might have a downside too. This one gives me more treasure chests, but because of that, there's going to be damage zones on the floor that I have to watch out for. It's all in a balance, and it's all random. The pieces that you get are random. So then you can put those together and try and make a random dungeon. And I do believe certain pieces will dictate what kind of final dungeon you get. That, honestly, surprised me when I found out about it, and I think it's a great idea. Path of Exile is looking to be an awesome game. I have to admit, though, while playing this, I got a little nostalgic for Diablo 3. And I actually went back when the servers were down and played a little bit of my Demon Hunter on Diablo 3. So, to me, the polish is there more with Diablo 3, but this is a beta, so that means they could get the polish with this game to where it needs to be. What I really like about this game is there's a ton of abilities and combinations that I haven't even seen yet. The augmentation skills are probably the best thing about this game. You can have a projectile that fires additional projectiles with the augment that you use, or you can get, and I'll show it off here, let's go back into my stash. You can get things like, let's see, here it is, added cold damage. I can add cold damage to my attacks or to my skills. All I have to do is put that into a weapon that's got these linked up abilities here. You can see this is by itself. These two are linked together. If they're linked together, you can put any augment you want there. This is awesome. So many different ways that you can play that way. Now the downside here, and this is the part that I feel very iffy about, is that because of the way they do these skills, and because you need sockets, that it makes it very difficult to upgrade sometimes, because you might find an item that's better, but you might lose the sockets, you might lose the augment links. So gear can be one of those things that's very difficult to manage. Now the beautiful thing is there are items such as the chromatic orb, which reforges the color of the sockets without changing how many sockets there are. And there is an item also that will randomly change how many sockets you get. Here you go, reforges the number of sockets an item gets, the jeweler's orb. So there are ways around these problems, and sometimes you might just have to grab an item and hold on to it for a little bit until you can get the proper reforging materials that you need. Here's the interesting thing, the interesting part about using these items. You look at all these augmentations I have, I mean, it's a huge row of them. All of these items can be used to purchase stuff. When you go to a shop, you don't pay for stuff in gold. There is no in-game currency. Anything you buy is bought with any of the orbs you can get. There are scrolls of wisdom, orbs of augmentation, transmutation. You can even trade portal scrolls for some of these orbs. Items are basically given to you as a barter system. It's a complete barter system. There is no gold. So what does this do? This creates an interesting economy that's item-based, purely item-based. So what's interesting about that means that I don't really see as many people wanting to hack into this game because of that, because all the items only buy other items. People are not going to buy gold. You can't buy gold because there is none. The real world money transaction buys points, and those points are spent on cosmetics. And I don't think you can trade points. So I'm sure someone will find a reason to want to hack in and for these items, but it really helps prevent standard inflation, because each of these items is worth something different. These scrolls of wisdom, honestly, when you barter them, that means you're losing out on your identify scrolls, because that's what these are. If you trade in any of your augmentations or transmutation orbs, for example, you are losing out on the ability to reforge your equipment. They have very methodically thought about the pluses and minuses, the pros and the cons of this system. My final recommendation is, you know what? Play it. If you like these kind of games, I think you'll like it. As you can see, the graphics here are fairly more realistic, more gritty. It is a fairly dark game, kind of returning to the roots of where Diablo 1 and 2 went. I still like the art style of Diablo 3, but yes, it wasn't as gritty in some areas, although there were some areas in Diablo 2, maybe not 1, but there were some areas in Diablo 2 that weren't as gritty, were a little more light, but a lot of people like to, remember the darker stuff, and this game has it in spades. Torchlight 2, obviously, if you're wanting to compare to that, Torchlight 2 is definitely very light, and of course has its cartoonish style. This, as you can see, has more of a realistic style. The models are not the best I've seen. A little ugly maybe, but you know what? You can see all your equipment on them. I couldn't do better. Let me put it that way. I don't want to insult the graphic styling here, because I think the graphics are good. And there's obviously not really any polishing passes done on stuff like that. So it could get even better. But it's serviceable for what it does, and honestly, since you're usually playing the game from a little bit of a distance here, it doesn't really even matter. So definitely very different styles, Diablo to Torchlight to Path of Exile. Diablo is honestly somewhere in the middle, whereas Torchlight is on the light, this is on the dark. Each one does what it does very well. Torchlight keeps the skill tree system that was removed in basically both of these games, and augments it with weapon damage percentages, and when you put points into the talent tree you might possibly get procs for something, which is great. Apparently they've looked into the talent tree because they've heard some complaints about that and how it felt like putting different points in didn't feel meaningful, so they went ahead and for certain areas they added stuff that you'll get as you're putting points in. I think that's great, honestly, because putting additional point into some of those didn't feel like you were getting a lot of power out of it. In the end, yes, it added up. In this, there is no talent trees. You're getting everything other than your passives, which is completely different because you're not buying skills. You're getting skills through gems, then you have to level up those gems and then augment them. So basically this game, Path of Exile, has the rune system of Diablo, except for you can have more than one rune. Simply because some items can, again, going back here, even though there's only one link here, there could possibly be another link here. I actually have a wand on my witch that had a triple link, and I've got an augment in the center, and it's augmenting two different summon abilities. Really great stuff there. So much customization just in this simple system. The downside to it, of course, is that you have to level up each of these abilities. The good news is they usually gain experience fairly quickly, but it does kind of suck to have to get a new ability and then level it up before it becomes really viable, because it's going to be really weak. In the case of my summons, they're going to die. So I don't exactly like that part of it, but if you really like customization, and if that is something you're into, grinding your skills and whatnot, then great. And the beautiful part is, because of this, you really don't have to start whole new characters in order to try different builds. All you have to do is get the equipment for it and have the gems, and then you can try a whole new build, because you can socket freely. I can put this gem in this socket and take it out without punishment. So they really want people to play around with the system, and I like that. The only part about it that you can't really play around too much with that I found is this, the passive tree. You get respec points, but that respec only allows you to go back a certain number of steps in the tree. So it's not a full respec. Not sure how I feel about that, because let's face it, there's some things you could really mess up on, such as here. I'm going to look at this real quick. This is Eldritch Battery. It converts all of your energy shield into mana. So you've got your health here, the energy shield is the secondary layer. I could take that energy shield, so let's say I have a lot of life, that's fine. Take away my energy shield, put it into my mana, that'll help me out. Well, what if I also got Chaos Inoculation? That provides immunity to chaos damage, gives me 50% more energy shield, but my maximum life becomes 1. I only have 1 hit point with this build. If I combine that by accident with Eldritch Battery, now let's face it, that's kind of something you would kind of see coming, especially because they're right next to each other. But let's just give a hypothetical what if. You could really mess yourself up, and it would be really hard to recover from that. I kind of would like the ability to respec this somehow. I don't know how, because there's no gold in the game. And I don't know how you get respec points. I only ever got 2. And I think it's because I got more than 1 skill point before spending them, and then so the game said, okay, you got multiple skill points, here, we're going to give you 2 respec points because you have 2 skill points. And I used them. I used both my respec points because I wanted to go a different way in the tree than I was heading. So unfortunately, I don't know the ultimate way to get more of those. So I would like to see this rebuildable. I'm not sure how deep you can get into it, since I believe there is a level cap. I don't know what the level cap is. I believe it's 60. But since they can let you redo all your skills, I honestly think it wouldn't be a bad idea to let you redo your passives. In Torchlight 2, that is kind of the one thing that upset me a little, was the respec system in that game, where you could only respec up to like level 10. And then you pretty much had to guess what was good and what was bad. So you couldn't really play around, and you had a chance of messing things up. Although you get a lot of skill points in that game, so you might not mess it up that bad. overall, this is a good compromise. Good game. Worth the money. Haha, see what I did there? Free game. Yeah. It's looking great. I honestly think Grinding Gear Games here has done, again, have done a really great job. I look forward to seeing what else they do. Honestly, with the Endgame idea they have with the map system, I'm impressed. I'd like to see what else they can come up with, and see if they ever, once they finally release this game to the general public, if they ever come up with more expansions and whatnot to get things going. Of course, that really depends on if people spend money on the game, and again, those being cosmetic. I really suggest to them putting something else other than cosmetics, just because it takes a certain kind of gamer to buy cosmetic items. A lot of people love cosmetics. A lot of people want to look different and be unique snowflakes, but I really don't think that would be the end-all model. Something to think about. Okay, well, that's been everything. That's honestly, I've gone everywhere as far as this review goes. Again, I really think it's a good game. I think you'll like it if you're into Diablo, if you're into Torchlight, you like action RPGs. It's really good. It can be frustrating at parts, and sometimes you'll feel like your skills might be underwhelming, but the thing is, when you get new skills, you have to level them. So keep that in mind, even if things seem kind of bleak at first. For example, I hated my summons when I first got them, but as they leveled up, they were great. Still not sure about my skeletons. Those things are dying too much. But hey, sometimes you got to stick it out. So this game is definitely one of those games that requires you to put time and energy into it to really feel how it is for a lot of those skills. Hopefully you found this informative. If you had any questions about what I experienced here in the Path of Exile beta, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I am usually fairly good about answering comments, though I know I haven't been doing it a lot lately, unless it's something I feel really warranted, kind of a response, or I happen to have free time. But I usually try, and especially if it's a question about something, I usually try and get to it right away. So if you have questions, do that. If it's a longer question, more complex, you have the shadowpost@gmail.com that you can email. So plenty of ways. Please like the videos, including this one, if you like that content. That helps out a great deal. And if you really like the content that I put out, I suggest subscribing, following me on Twitter or Facebook. I also have Twitch TV, which I haven't for an entire weekend, probably the past week, I haven't actually used. But that's because the weekend has mainly been because of Path of Exile, and the week has been because I have been feeling good. Go figure. Alright. Hopefully I've made your decision a little bit easier on if you want to look into this game. This is KageKaze, signing out. See you guys on the next.